A very good evening to you and a warm welcome to our program Business Today. It's time now for us to take a look at who our business personality of the week is. Today's discussion would be basically on the port city and its developments. So our personality this week happens to be someone who is attached to the Colombo Port City project. Let's have a look.
Of Visakha Vidyalaya, Colombo, YAMUNA JAYARATNA currently serves as the Director Sales and Marketing for Port City Colombo, the most ambitious real estate development project in Sri Lanka. She has over 2 decades of experience in sales and marketing, specializing in real estate. She is regarded as an authority in commercial real estate and is one of the most experienced industry experts in this field in Sri Lanka. She has held many senior positions in the international real estate companies she has served in the past. YAMUNA JAYARATNA has over 20 years of experience in senior positions in the field of real estate marketing, predominantly in the areas of commercial real estate assets. She was heading marketing for the 2 most iconic real estate developments in Sri Lanka and has represented Sri Lanka in global forums throughout her career.
Yes, and we are privileged to have with us Ms. Yamuna Jayaratna, Director Sales and Marketing of the CHEC Port City Colombo project. A very good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Sharifa, and thank you for having me.
And today's topic will be basically about the advantages of the Colombo Port City and what we've received so far in terms of development for the country and the economy, and how long this whole thing would be taking, because everyone's looking forward to this and we're all having our own questions. So first and foremost, let's touch on the bill, Yamuna, because this has been quite a topic. So we understand that there has been a few changes in the bill after it has been passed by the Parliament. So can you enlighten our viewers about the changes and why it happened?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Sharifa. So I'm not going to touch on every single change singularly, but I can tell you that Supreme Court's determination was mainly on certain constitutional inconsistencies of the bill, and most of the changes ruled by the Supreme Court were technical or appropriate wording that they wanted placed within the Port City Economic Commission bill, and there were absolutely no fundamental changes to the provisions of the Act. So they were really small changes or technical changes to certain legal words that were within the Act. Those, I think that really sums it up, because what's important to mention is that there were no fundamental changes done to what the Act is trying to achieve or the salient features of the Act. It is as it was proposed, really.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about your role in this project as the Director Sales and Marketing.
Well, I am one of Director Sales and Marketing. I of course head Sri Lanka and India, but we do have representatives or my colleagues really based in China as well as Singapore and in the Middle East. So our role, I would say, and our collective role is to really attract primary investors to come and invest in the vertical developments and make this port city a reality, and also to assist in positioning Port City as a multi-services hub globally, catering to the South Asian region.
Right. Yeah. And what are the important commercial terms of this project, Yamuna?
Okay, so let me start off with the inception and how this comes into being for the clarity of the audience. The project company, which is CHEC Port City Colombo, it is a fully owned subsidiary of China Communications and Construction Company, which is a Fortune 500 company in over 40 cities around the world. Entered into a tripartite agreement with the government of Sri Lanka, the UDA and the project company. So the entire investment for the development, and very clearly here when I say development, I am really referring to the creation of the horizontal development or the making of the reclaimed land, not the vertical structures, the construction of the breakwater, as well as the infrastructure that goes into the land. The project company is required to develop, construct these developments, and the total investment envisaged is $1.4 billion US. And I'm happy to say that the key phases of this construction is now more or less complete. We have already invested over $1.1 billion US into the horizontal construction of Port City.
That's basically the land.
The land, so it's really reclaiming the land from the sea. Right, so creating a viable reclaimed land as an extension to Colombo. It's actually an extension of Colombo, right? In fact, Port City was declared a part of the Colombo's administrative district back in 2019. That is when the land reclamation was completed. The breakwater was also completed back in 2019, and currently we are laying the infrastructure work, that is your plumbing, sewerage, solid waste management, all those facilities within the Port City land.
And here we are looking at development and also investments from outside and also from inside the country maybe. So enlighten us on who can actually invest on the Port City.
Right. So let me answer that question in two parallels really. The primary investors or the key investors that we are looking to attract into the country right now are investors who can invest in the land, right, and the ensuing vertical developments. Otherwise this would not be a city, right? So the investments that we are looking at right now, I would say, are somewhat sizable. We are really looking at bringing in investors who can invest. I mean, similar projects that are in the mainland are the One Golf Face development, World Trade Center, that type of developments. I mean, these are the type of investors that we are trying to attract into Port City. Local investors can also certainly invest, and I think a testament to that is that the first investor to sign off on one of our most strategic developments, which is the Colombo International Financial Center, which is slated to break ground this year. We have entered into a partnership with Brown's Investment. Right. Furthermore, I think we would see quite a bit of local participation in even some of the other developments that we would hope to see coming up in the near future. And I think right now we see a lot of interest from local entities who are willing and looking to invest. So certainly it is open for local investors to come in. However, having said that, for the ensuing development, for the vertical structure that this developer or investor would build, the funds must be brought in from outside the country. Right? So this can be a challenging factor for certain local parties to counter. But the whole idea or the principle behind Port City is to drive foreign currency to come into the country. Right. So the entire act or the Port City Commission bill is focused on driving investment back into the country. So for any local investor, yes, they can invest, but they must bring the funds for such investment from outside the country.
So that's the criteria.
So that's the criteria. If that criteria can be met, of course, we would very much like to have local investors investing. And the fact that right now we have huge interest from local investors, and the first investment is partnered with a well-established and well-reputed local company is a testament to the fact that yes, this is Sri Lanka's city of the future, and Sri Lankans can certainly invest. And having said that, I think there's this misconception that Chinese investors will only come in and develop. I think it's important to note that the opportunity to invest within Port City is open for any investor from around the world.
It's not just specifically one
Not
country.
at all.
Right.
Sorry?
Not just specifically one country per se, but
No,
from all around the globe.
Of course not. And the idea is to really build a truly international city. When I think this goes beyond any country-specific image, it is really, we want to really position this as a fantastic investment opportunity for developers and investors.
Now
That's
that
what it is.
now that we are on the topic of investment and developers, who will be responsible for managing the land?
It's a good question. An important point that I want to raise before I come to that question, Sharifa, is what is the land that we are bringing to the table? It will be a city built on sustainable principles, but also it will be a future-ready smart city. We are really looking at bringing in very advanced smart city concepts. The infrastructure for the same is being laid out as we speak. So what's important is that you do need specific expertise and that kind of knowledge to manage a smart city. So in terms of the management and the maintenance of this city, an estate management company would be formed. This would be formed between the project company and the government of Sri Lanka. So it is this estate management company that would be responsible for the maintenance, upkeep and management of all common area facilities within Port City. And it's important to note that 1/3 of the entire reclaimed land, Sharifa, almost amounting to 91 hectares, are common areas. There will be a lush green park 3 times the size of Golfes Green, right in the center. There will be a saltwater channel running right across the entire development, and an entire network of secondary parks sort of dotted throughout the development. While it's very well connected with an internal road system, Sharifa, there will be dedicated bicycle lanes, and green shaded walkways sort of spread connecting the entire city. So imagine our Colombo 7 Guilford Crescent or some of these beautiful lush green roads. That is going to be the entirety of Port City 10 years, 20 years down the line.
That sounds very, very interesting and attractive. So
it is.
There's also
we want to position it as one of the most livable cities in South Asia, in addition to being a multi-services hub.
Right, and also we've come across people having this question in mind, whether they can enter and exit the Colombo Port City like you enter and exit any place in the country.
I mean, I'm going to put it very simply, Sharifa. For anyone who visits to Port City and enter Port City, upon completion or as elements are being completed, it's the same as going to any part of Colombo or any part of Sri Lanka. You don't need special permission to get off in Kolpiti or Bambalapiti or any part of Colombo. So it will be the same. It's really an extension of the city of Colombo. Yes, we call it Port City, but it's really an extension of the city of Colombo. So my answer is yes, anyone can come in. However, if you are to conduct any commercial activities within Port City, to start a company or whatever, then you must be an authorized person, and for that you require a license from the Port City Commission.
Right.
If you are a company, the company has to be registered as an offshore company. Plus you have to have the license. So that's the criteria.
So that's the difference. So if you just want to enter the place and see how beautiful it looks.
You don't need any special permits. You don't need a passport. You don't need anything extraordinary to enter Port City. In fact, Sharif, on that note, I must say, of course, plans remain a little fluid because of the COVID pandemic, but we are hoping to open certain elements. As you know, Port City has created a 2-kilometer uninterrupted beach. Now Colombo is a coastal central business district, right? But do we have a beach? No. Do we even see the beach when we're driving down Galle Road? Unfortunately, no. But I think what Port City brings to the table is a fantastic beach front, and facing the beach front is a sheltered swim lagoon, because the breakwater creates a sheltered water bank, and that entire water body is about 109 hectares. So we are hoping to open certain elements of the beach, and we are hoping to put in certain temporary facilities, like I mean, discussions are underway, such as an ATV track, a beach club, and various elements which I think, and we are hoping to open these areas to the public towards the end of the year. At least the plans are to open it towards the end of the year, permitting we get the COVID pandemic under control.
Fingers crossed for that. And some are concerned that this project will have environmental damage. Your say on this?
Yeah, so I want to stress that the project has gone through comprehensive environmental impact assessment studies, right? So studies were done by subject experts, under the guidance and the supervision of multiple institutions, well-respected institutions, Sharifa, such as the University of Moratuwa, Peradeniya, the Central Engineering Consultancy Bureau, National Aquatic Resources Research Agency, etc. In fact, it was under the supervision of 26 organizations, Sharifa, and an extensive study was done, and an environmental impact assessment study, or an EIA, was done. It was publicly reviewed and released to the public. If you go to the company website, you can download the environmental impact assessment study, and that has all the answers if anyone has any doubts. Of course, we must be realistic. There is no development without any impact on the environment, but extensive studies were done, and all caution was taken to minimize any negative impact. But having said that, I want to move on to the positive impact the project has.
When you said negative, I thought you would come up with some positive impact as well.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about the economic impact or anything like that. Sharifa, see, if you take the lifespan of this project, and we're looking at maybe 20 years, right? Development will happen. Right, but what we are offering here is guided development, and I must stress that Port City has placed tremendous importance on sustainability, right, for two reasons. One, investors now, today's investors especially, I think the COVID pandemic was an eye-opener, right? So to drive investment into the country, who will invest? Investment will come from the ultra high net worth individuals who control where the money moves in the world, right? There is a huge focus on the impact of their investment. Is it going to be sustainable development? Is it going to have a positive social impact? It's no longer just about making profit for the shareholders. It's no longer that. So sustainability is a key consideration in driving investment decision. That's one reason. Two, we want this to be a green city, right? So every single development, so if you just let development happen for development's sake, Sharif, you're not going to have all this attention focused, right? But if you take every single vertical development that is expected to be developed within Port City, it is guided by what we call a development control regulation, right? This has 4 volumes, from urban design, utilities, etc. One volume is purely on sustainability, right? So that drives in, they have to stick to that. This will form a part of the act. This will form a part of the legal requirements for a developer. They have to make sure that they get green building certification, right? From specified green building organizations, recognized organizations in the world. Things like rainwater harvesting is mandatory. right? Developers are required to maintain green to build space, certain percentages of green to build space ranging from 20% to, in some cases, almost 40% of their entire development. Right. So these are some of the measures that have been well thought out and very clearly stipulated to any developer. So any developer who comes and puts in a vertical structure will be required to adhere to these. Also, they are required to reduce their carbon footprint, take on energy saving measures. Right, and they will be rewarded. I mean, companies that go for higher levels of green certification might be rewarded with bonus GFA. So there are provisions to encourage developers to sort of embrace these principles as well. So imagine a city, each and every single built on these grounds, Sharifa. Imagine the city that we as Sri Lankans are going to inherit.
Exactly, and it's basically about protecting the environment as well, since we touched on environment.
You cannot stop development and not do anything for the sake of, it's going to impact the environment. You have to develop, and development will happen, whether we like it or not, right? At its own pace.
Depends on how you develop.
Depends on how you do it, right?
And about fishing as well.
Right.
Let's touch on that topic, the impact on fishing.
Sure. So it's important to note, Sharifa, that the project company spends about 60 million rupees annually every year for monitoring and research conducted by NARA and LHI for marine environment and aquatic resources. So there is constant monitoring, there is a constant, there is a huge amount of funds that we spend annually to ensure that there are minimal impacts to any fishing activities. And their conclusions have found out that there is minimal to very, very little impact, if at all.
That certainly is a positive thing.
Yeah.
And we touched on investors, and you mentioned that we have a Sri Lankan as one of the first investors for the Colombo Port City project. So what are the queries we've received so far in terms of investments from around the world?
I think it's important to note at this point, Sharifa, of course, we have not launched this project globally because there's really no point in going to the world with this kind of project without having that legal framework law, or having, so the hard what I refer to as the hard infrastructure is the land and the breakwater and the master plan, all that, but the soft infrastructure, Sharifa, which is creating that conducive investment friendly environment that can compete with other such hubs, has to be there in order for us to take a complete value proposition, a compelling value proposition really to the world, right? But despite the fact that we are yet to launch this globally, we have had tremendous interest from various parties, and I think we had 2 world billionaires visiting us in recent times. One was Mr. Nathaniel Rothschild, and the other was Mr. Andrei Melnichenkov, whose net worth is around $17.9 billion US. And in fact, I think the yacht that he had come to Sri Lanka in alone was valued at $300 million US. So we've had tremendous interest from various parties, and we are hoping that the next few months, or that in time to come, we will see that that interest materializing into transactions.
Interesting. And now that we've touched a lot about what we can expect to see at the Colombo Port City, how is this going to be beneficial for the general public?
Okay. So yeah, I think that's a very, very pertinent question, Sharif, and thank you for asking that. I might have a long answer for that. When you take a look at the benefit to the general public, anything that will benefit the strengthening of Sri Lanka's economy, strengthening of our human capital and the knowledge, know-how that we have, will benefit the Sri Lankan public, because we are the Sri Lankan public, right? So taking it, so there are 3 stages of the project, Sharifa. There is the stage where there is the land reclamation, where the leasing activities take place, and then there's the phase where construction will take place. We are talking about the next 5 years, right, before the first few vertical developments open to the public. Then, Sharifa, we have the operational stage. This is when these vertical developments open to the public and they start operating, right? So there is direct impact, indirect impact, and induced impact, right? Direct impact is, okay, let's take employment, right? So right now, as it is during the construction phase, Sharifa, there is direct and indirect employment for about 8,000 people created so far, right? I, for one, I make my living by working for Port City. I spend the money that I earn with other institutions. If I go to a supermarket or a shop or whatever, my children's education. So that is your induced impact, right? I help, the money I earn help keep other institutions running, right? And so there's indirect impact created as well, Sharifa. So one is employment, obviously. Then upon completion, Sharifa, we expect that there will be employment opportunities created for over 300,000 employment opportunities created, and the majority of those opportunities will go to the Sri Lankan public, because no company is going to come and set up in Sri Lanka and bring a and have a complete expatriate staff. They are going to want to hire from Sri Lanka. Right?
That's economical for them.
Absolutely, which is why they come to Sri Lanka, right? Because we have a distinct cost advantage over certain other established hubs. And then, Sharifa, what about the knowledge transfer? We are trying to position Port City as a multi-services hub. We are trying to attract global services companies to set up their regional offices, headquarter offices within Port City, right? So with these officers, imagine we have a global company setting up. They have best management, best practices, knowledge, know-how. Our youth, our public will have the opportunity to work with expatriates that bring global experience to the table, right? So the knowledge transfer, the transfer of management best practices, all those are areas where our employment and our workforce would benefit from, Sharifa, right? Then the other area is, of course, the direct inflow of FDI. So the projected inflow of FDIs just for the vertical developments alone is estimated at about $13.5 billion US.
That's
right.
a lot.
Right. And of course, Sharifa, there will be a lot of value addition. There will be a continuous contribution to the GDP coming from the activities within Port City.
Exactly. So this in turn will contribute to the prosperity of the nation.
Absolutely. In fact, Sharifa, there is this interesting thing that I read recently. I mean, in the 1980s, there was this quaint little fishing village bordering a river. It had a population of 60,000. This was in the 1980s, right? Now, it is home to the 8th largest financial center in the world. It has a population of 12 million. Right? It ranks 4th as having the largest number of billionaires within a city in the world. I'm talking about Shenzhen. Shenzhen was the first special economic zone in China. Right? But the right decisions, the right regulatory framework and the right policies have taken that little fishing community of 60,000 to where it is now. It is the tech hub. It's the most sought after tech hub in Asia. So that is the potential Port City can have for Sri Lanka.
We've come towards the latter part of the program as well, Yamuna. So we touched on bicycle pathways and about how beautiful it would be to see the beaches while you travel inside the port city. So apart from all that, will there be any leisure activities, any parks as such built at the port city for the general public?
Oh yeah, of course. One of the key leisure areas that we have, Sharifa, is the Marina precinct. So there we will have a luxury yachting marina which can berth about 200 to 220 luxury yachts. I think this is essential because obviously we want to give reasons to attract the high net worth individuals to not just to Port City. I mean, this is a reason for them to come to Sri Lanka. We are giving them a reason to come. They might decide to invest anywhere within the country, in any industry, not just services, but maybe in manufacturing, who knows, right? But we are giving them reasons to come. Right, so along the marina there will be beautiful cafes, and you can imagine you've got that stunning Colombo city line, and then the sunset and the ocean on one side, and you'll have cafes, restaurants, open air kind of dining, etc. available. So that's one area I think that will open fairly soon once the real estate that is expected to be built on the marina is constructed. Then, as I mentioned, Sharifa, the beach we are hoping to open to the public fairly soon, and we're hoping to put in a temporary beach club. Discussions are underway and we're hoping to finalize soon. So that I think is going to offer an experience that we didn't have in Colombo. Also, we are hoping to have various other temporary leisure activities such as an ATV track, etc., which will be open to the public. Of course, eventually Port City will have a beautiful green park right in the center of the city that I mentioned before. But getting to that, you see, Port City is still very much a construction site.
Right now.
Exactly, right now. So as and when certain elements are completed, we may decide to open certain sections. So the more immediate ones that will open to the public, I would say, would be the beach and the area thereabout.
So what would be the first vertical building we would end up seeing?
Okay, so there are a few actually. So I think the very first few structures you would potentially see are these beautiful cafes and these structures I was referring to, which will sit on the marina real estate, right? So as you drive down Gaul Road, you see the marina revetments. So on the marina, there will be, I think maximum you can build to about 3 to 4 floors. You cannot go beyond that in terms of the height. So there will be small cafes and various real estate that will be developed there. I think those we expect to have constructed and really open to the public by about 2023-24. Right, then Sharifa, 2025 would be a big year because we expect to see the Colombo International Financial Center opening its doors to the public. That will be a fairly large facility. It will have 480,000 square feet of office space, a beautiful retail mall, as well as almost an 800 unit residential tower. You would also see the opening of the healthcare, the international healthcare facility, as well as the international school within Port City. So these are some of the elements that you will probably see within the near future.
Within like a couple of years or more?
Yeah, so in the next 5 years, I would say these are the developments that you would see.
With that, it's time for us to conclude this discussion as well on the Colombo Port City and its development. All the very best with your work, because I know this is very, very hard, and it's a lot of hard work put into kind of make this a success as well.
It's challenging.
It's challenging, yes.
But it's an absolute pleasure because I believe we're taking bold and the right steps in really changing the course of the country.
Thank you very much and wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharif.
And with that, we conclude Business Today for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have yourself a pleasant night.